So welcome, Genevieve Basselier. And we have a fun topic lined up for you today, which is about the future of teaching, AI in teaching. And who better to talk to when we discuss topics such as this than the person who's really in charge of our teaching. So welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure. And it's a very exciting topic. So I'm happy to discuss that with you, Saiku.
Okay, so let's get started. When did you start teaching in the university yourself?
In 2001, I joined McGill and started teaching back then in the core MBA.
Do you recall where the methods of your teaching, that's like 2001, that's almost 25 years ago. Has there been any significant change in the way that you teach?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was very proud just having earned my PhD and being very focused on lecturing and sharing everything that I knew about this field. And that was not, especially with MBAs, received very well. They wanted classes that are more interactive. And I realized that they learn more when they have time to reflect and apply the concepts that we see in class. So over the years, I have changed a lot, actually, the way I teach to emphasize more and more active learning and now very much experiential learning.
When you start out, I think a lot of us, we were pretty, concerned with do we get it right? So, do we cover the content and do we sort of, go through all the bullet points in our slides? And then over the years, your perspective switches to what the students actually learn rather than what we say, than what do they get. And sort of, I suppose it makes perfect sense then to add all those.
Exactly. So less is more in a way, right? For that, I think that I wanted to cover so much material that lecturing was the only way to go through all this material. But then I realized that they retained very little of what I was covering. So I went for fewer, less content and making sure that they get it.
So there's kind of an underpinning assumption that's unearthed by AI, or actually quite a few of them. So because the AI challenges us in a way to really think about the core of what it is that we do. That, like when a student does a PhD, so it's a kind of almost like you join a monastery where you have to read all these texts. Every week you get bombarded with sort of heavy text that you have to, you read about them and then you incorporate the knowledge. That seems to be the assumption. Obviously, AI is something quite different. So all of a sudden we have a receptacle of knowledge that can answer your questions. And in one way, a traditional text is very, very inefficient. So it's like, it's never quite on the topic that you want it to be. And even if it were, so it can't answer the questions that the student is having. So all of a sudden, when you have these different apps that you can train, they engage with the student in a different way. So I suppose my first question is that we treated the capacity to process text, make sense of text as a key metacognitive skill for students. And how do you think about the AI changing that? Should we give some of that up?
That's a very good question. And the short answer is no, I don't think we should give anything up. I think we have a great opportunity with AI to enhance the students' learning through readings and through being challenged on their understanding of the readings. So I think reading, we can see it as a basic cognition skill before it becomes a metacognition, where they're processing text, right? But then that's what we want. We want students to reach a higher level of learning by going through a more of a metacognitive skills, by reflecting on and making connection with prior knowledge that they have. And so we want them to do that. And to be honest, in the context of a classroom, we face limitations because each student will have a different level of understanding, different time to reflect, will have different prior experience, and so on and so forth. And the instructor's role is to address like the average, right? Try to target everybody, but of course we can. So AI is a great opportunity to personalize students' learning. So when they do the learning, Hopefully they do the full learning, but even if it's a summary provided by AI, they can then be asking questions to see the kind of connections they can make and the kind of the clarifying, could be just clarifying questions. So they can take their learning really from the level they are at to a higher level, which is a challenge for an instructor, right?
That's really interesting. So why would you say reading is so important?
Well, I think that the reading is the foundation to writing, and writing is the way to structure your thoughts. So I see that as essential. We want to ultimately develop their critical thinking, their ability to synthesize, to adapt to different scenarios, and I think that comes from being able to structure your thoughts, which comes greatly from writing, and writing is I see it as being very influenced by reading. So you need to have the base knowledge, you need to understand. And I'm not excluding other sources of knowledge, right? They can learn through videos and social media and other sources, but reading more developed or elaborated text and content will, I think, enhance their ability to consider a lot of information and organize it in the way that they want.
You already mentioned writing, that you said that writing for you is a crucial tool for structuring thought. I think that's what you said.
Yes,
more or less.
Yes, that's what I mean.
So I think here AI challenges us even more in a sense, because it brings to the front questions about authorship, about plagiarism, about sort of all these things that, we deal from one sense, from a disciplinary angle. So I've had, in the good old days, the kind of thing that you would use a program to sort of generate the text and then say it's yours, that would totally not have been okay. Nowadays, the policies are shifting. The whole notion of sort of who writes a text is shifting. Even sort of just simply when you're typing stuff on your own word processor, it's suggesting stuff to you. There's this autofill function. So there is this large language model sort of prediction capacity that is seeping in to technology. So how do you view us going forward?
I think so. It is important to not ignore the tools that we have, right, at our disposal. They're there. Students will use them. Everybody will use them, right? So how do we make sure that there's still learning? I think this is where our role as profs become even more important. So in a controlled context environment, you need to make sure that they can do things on their own, but they can now improve it much more than or more easily than it has ever been, right? Why should we prevent ourselves from benefiting from this improvement, right?
Yeah.
So I think that students should, once they've written a text, have it improved by AI. But what matters is that they reflect on that, right? Is that they see what changes have been made. They have to agree to those changes. They have to understand. They have to be critical towards those changes. And that is our role, because we all tend to be lazy. If we just let it go, they will just, not do the self-reflection.
But that's one thing. So if we don't know how to read and write ourselves, it's very, very hard to see when an AI has produced a text that actually makes sense.
That's why it's even more important that we continue to enforce the basic knowledge, because if they don't have basic knowledge in or theory, for example, they will never be able to be critical on what is produced by the AI, right? So that's why in the context of a classroom, you need to make sure that they do the readings, and the way to do that is to have a quiz in class, right? And then they can put this reading through AI to be asked questions. And then they can write from the results of their quiz. This is what a lot of my colleagues do now. Our colleagues do from the results, the output of the AI, of the quiz, sorry. Then they enhance it through AI, but they have to identify what has been changed. They have to say why they agree with those changes, and they do a self-reflection of the changes. Yeah. So
maybe have AI do the self-reflection for them. Who knows?
For sure. Again, maybe you have that done in the classroom, right? In a more controlled environment. But I hear you. And as LLMs improve all the time, it's going to be even prompting, right? Prompting engineering we hear a lot about it, but it becomes a bit less important as the LLMs improve their ability to capture your thoughts.
How do you find yourself using say ChatGPT or what's your weapon of choice? Do you use an AI?
So I do use AI. So I use AI to challenge my ideas.
Yeah.
In many times. So I'll explain what I'm trying to do, give kind of an outline. Those are my ideas. I ask, am I missing something? Is there something wrong in what I'm saying? And of course, they may be wrong in telling me what I'm wrong about, but it will make me reflect.
Yeah.
Right? It will make me think. But and I honestly think that ChatGPT writes much better than I do. And so I will use some of the outputs, but in my not my academic writing, but in my if I have to do a memo or a report, I may use some of the output, but I do make sure that it was my ideas and it's my that I agree with everything that is said, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of colleagues use it for language checking, for instance. Yeah. So that's a very good
Why
function.
should we deprive ourselves of that?
And also, this kind of back and forth that we can have a conversation about ideas.
Yeah.
If it's a syllabus, you're trying to figure out, the main perspectives that you want to bring into a course or maybe a lecture or sort of whatever kind of this feedback where you can then decide on whether or not you find that helpful.
And you were mentioning that you can detect sometimes when students use AI. Well, we have to keep in mind that students can also detect when a prof uses AI in their in their preparation of their material. And I have heard students come to complain about that. So it's for everybody, right? Everybody has to be critical on the output to make sure it makes sense. And
I'm so glad to hear it because that's it's if the students care about sort of that's cool. Yeah, I'm actually very, very glad. Well, I think one thing that you mentioned here is that why shouldn't we allow students to use the best tools to make their text better? So there's been arguments, and obviously it's sort of there's a wild conversation about AI in teaching. But a part of that argument has been that it actually can be an equalizer. That, the EDI, for instance, we teach in a business school. Neither of us are, I don't know if you're a native English speaker.
No, I'm
At
not.
least I'm not.
No,
and
French.
And we've been able to compete in an environment in classrooms where there are people who were not educated only in an English school system, but probably in some expensive private school somewhere where they read Shakespeare and learn rhetoric. And in a sense, I've always felt that, okay, that's fine, but sort of it's kind of unfair. And also when I see students in my classroom who are struggling even more, and sort of it's been difficult previously to kind of fully separate what is about their thinking and what is about their language. And it seems that AI can be an equalizer there.
I think it goes beyond language. It can be about neurodivergence as well. Students who need more time to process some information. So yes, with simultaneous translation, with captioning, you can definitely make it more give equal chances to students to perform well. I think we have to keep in mind, though, as a university or any learning environment, about what are the objective. If the objective is that they are learning that in English, do you want in an English-speaking institution to have students who come in not mastering the language and exiting and still are at the same level in their language. It's a question that I'm asking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have the answer, but yes, it can definitely help students with language barriers or other learning barriers. It can also personalize, right? You can use, as an instructor, you can use AI to give more personalized feedback to students. I don't know, in your class, in the more technical classes that I teach, I often encounter a big problem, which is students come in the classroom with very different levels of the knowledge, right? So, for example, when I used to teach Excel, some students used to, I've never touched Excel, and others were very, very high level of mastery of the tools.
Came in with their own pivot tables.
There you go. So what do, right? You go for the average, right? But you're overstimulating some students and understimulating other ones, right? So you could have personalized assessment, personalized learning material for different levels of students. It's much easier to do with AI than individually.
Okay, so this is cool, because it seems that this is one type of technology that is emerging, which is this kind of an AI assistant for the classroom, so that that can kind of level the playing field.
You can develop agents. So AI is a lot about agentic AI now, and so you can develop a tutor, an assistant that will be available to students 24/7, that will answer their questions, and the knowledge base that is used to develop this agent can be restricted to the instructor's material, right? So it doesn't hallucinate on other things. So you can make sure that your material, for example, ideally you have recorded your lectures, you have all your slides, all your readings, and you can develop agents that will learn from that set of material and answer students. And then you can build it such that they take students the level they're at and building their knowledge to what you expect as the instructor.
One of the visions that I heard, this was a colleague teaching in Asia who said that they've been even thinking that you could have a truly multilingual classroom at some point, due to that there's Star Trek simultaneous translation. That I think that's pretty blue sky at the moment, but it's not an impossible scenario.
Not impossible at all. No, for sure. And I think it can hopefully enrich the classroom. And of course, remove barriers for some students. But I strongly believe that cross-cultural exposure is essential in one's personal growth. So it could facilitate that.
Yeah, but also what you said about, say, we know that at McGill we have a lot of smart French students who come from France and want to develop their English skills while they're here in an environment that's also Francophone. So that is clearly a takeout for them. So in a sense, using AI to always level the playing field, it might not be best for the teaching. On the other hand, then if you lower the barriers for multicultural interaction, then that's another thing where so we have to really, it seems that there's a lot of balancing for us to do in the years to come.
Yes, we'll have to really think about what are our main objectives, right? Because there are so many possibilities now. And I'm tempted to say for the French students you're talking about, if their objective is to enhance their English, a lot of Quebec students come to McGill as well for the same reason. Well, they have to persevere and use the tools to help them enhance their English.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. I'm going to conclude with maybe, I think this is a fun question, but I was just reading up on the history of philosophy, and in many of these great German philosophers like Hegel and Heidegger and many others, there's stories of how their lectures were such an important site, and also sort of in many cases they're reputedly really bad teachers, that they were sort of, there, they would, show up in the front of the room and they would sort of read their notes from their notes, mumble, and the students would, struggle to listen, and sort of there's somebody who's writing furiously because, then the lecture notes would be like Aristotle, actually, sort of what's published of Aristotle mainly, almost all of it is his lecture notes from when he was teaching. So there's this day and age where, due to the limitations of the technology at hand, that sort of, pressing books took time and so on. Sort of, it was you'd had to go and listen to somebody who really, arguably couldn't teach, because that's where we'd get the knowledge. Well, we're in a very different circumstance now. Is there any pedagogical function for a traditional lecture anymore? So where somebody is sitting in a podium or standing in a podium, showing slides or reading from a manuscript. So do you see any function for that type of teaching anymore?
I think I'm not sure if it's because students want to be stimulated more than listening for 90 minutes to someone, or it is because they know that the knowledge is available in a textbook or on slides and they can look at it at their own pace, at their own time. So the flexibility there could be an advantage. But I think that lecturing in a class is important. Only lecturing may be a concern. And when what you lecture is what is exactly what's on your slides or what comes out of a textbook can not meet the students' expectations. I think that you may want to make it more interactive. Again, I'll go back to where we started with the active learning, right? You want to make sure that you give them time in the context of the class to apply. So you can lecture for 20 minutes and then you give a little case or a little exercise or a discussion among themselves to reflect, to think, to make connections. And then you can go back to lecturing another 20 minutes and being more interactive. This is how I see it.
So what I'm kind of hearing you saying is that the lecture can be a good structuring device as well.
I think so. And so some students that I hear like commenting on, for example, material that was developed maybe not by the prof, but by AI tools, are telling me we come to university to hear from experts on different areas, and we want to know what they know. We want to know how they think. We want to know their experience. We want to know their like examples, and we want our questions to be answered by them because they are experts. And so there's definitely room for lecturing. I would never give that up. But I think that if you want to, there are different learning styles, right, in the classroom. And so if you want to address that, you need to vary. You need to not only lecture, but do other types of activities as well, I think.
Okay. I think this has been a fun conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks to you, Saku.
All right.
All right, thank you.